Time and date: March 19th, 2009, 4:30 p.m. Lakewood Estates, USA. Malik thought it was just another ordinary day. A quiet evening in his neighborhood, when the world around him was suddenly shattered by a scream. The high-pitched cry echoed through the evening air, sending a chill down Malik's spine. He turned to see a young girl, barefoot and covered in dirt, running toward him, tears streaming down her face. It was Lily. Her wide, terrified eyes locked onto Malik, and she sobbed uncontrollably. "Help! Mommy, Daddy, blood!" she cried, clutching at his sleeve. The urgency in her voice sent a chill through Malik's body. He could feel his pulse quicken, his mind racing to comprehend the gravity of the situation. Without thinking, Malik knelt down, trying to comfort her. "Lily, what happened?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily didn't answer right away. She seemed disoriented, as if she couldn't fully process the horror that had just unfolded. But she pulled at his sleeve, urging him to follow her. Malik hesitated for only a moment before nodding, taking her hand. He had to act. Something was terribly wrong. Lily led him down the street to a house, the house she had called home. As they approached, the door was slightly ajar. The tension in the air was thick, and Malik's heart pounded in his chest. He stepped inside, and the sight that greeted him made his blood run cold. Through the open door, Malik saw Daniel Monroe, Lily's father, lying motionless on the floor. Blood pooled around him, staining the hardwood. His body was lifeless, his eyes wide open in a haunting stare. And there, kneeling over his body, was Olivia Monroe, her face covered in blood and tears. She didn't seem to notice Malik's presence, her hands trembling as they hovered over her husband's body. The sight was surreal, like something out of a nightmare. Malik's instincts kicked in. This wasn't an accident. Something had happened here, and Lily's desperate cry for help now made sense. Malik quickly pulled out his phone and dialed the authorities, his hand shaking as he described the scene. As he waited for the police to arrive, the weight of the situation began to settle over him. He had stumbled into something much bigger than he ever expected. The mystery of what had happened to Daniel Monroe, the blood-stained house, and Olivia's grief-filled state was only the beginning. Malik, though unsure of his role in the unfolding drama, knew one thing for certain. He couldn't walk away from this. He had to know the truth, even if it meant facing dangers he couldn't yet comprehend. He had already stepped into a world of uncertainty, but the stakes were rising with every passing second. What had happened to Lily's father? And why had Lily been so terrified? As the investigation unfolded, Malik began to realize that his involvement might not just be as a witness. The more he uncovered, the more he learned about the tangled web of family betrayal, organized crime, and dark secrets that had been lurking in the shadows. What started as a simple act of kindness, helping a frightened girl, quickly turned into a complex, high-stakes situation that would change his life forever. Stay tuned. What will Malik do next? How will his bravery alter the course of events? The suspense is just beginning, and Malik's journey is about to take a turn he never saw coming. Malik had always been a quiet, reserved boy, keeping to himself as he grew up in the small, suburban neighborhood of Lakewood Estates. His family didn't have much, but they had each other, a simple, humble life. Malik had always been taught that family and loyalty were the most important things in life. His father worked hard to provide for them, and while their home was modest, it was filled with love and support. Malik had learned to see the beauty in small things, to focus on the positive, and to look for hope in difficult situations. But all of that was about to change. Malik's life was about to be thrown into chaos as he became entangled in a case much bigger than himself. Lily, on the other hand, lived a very different life. 6 years old, she came from a family of wealth and privilege. Her father, Daniel Monroe, was a successful businessman known for his dealings in industries that, though profitable, had a reputation for being murky. Olivia, Lily's mother, was the picture of grace and beauty, but their marriage had begun to crumble under the weight of Daniel's increasingly dangerous ties to criminal activities. Once the love of his life, Olivia had become a shadow of the woman she once was, as Daniel's dealings dragged her into a world she didn't want to be a part of. The cracks in their family had been growing wider over the years, but the tension came to a head when Lily found herself in the middle of it all. One ordinary evening, Lily ran barefoot out of the house, her eyes wide with terror, tears streaming down her dirt-smeared face. She was shaking, her voice quivering as she screamed for help. "Help, Mommy, Daddy Blood," she cried, gripping onto Malik's sleeve as if he was her only hope. Malik was frozen in shock for a moment. He didn't know what had just happened, but the urgency in Lily's voice was undeniable. Her words made no sense, but the fear in her eyes was clear. Something terrible had happened. Malik didn't hesitate. He could feel the gravity of the situation pulling him in. He knelt down, trying to comfort her, but she only pulled harder on his sleeve, urging him to follow her. Without fully understanding the situation, Malik knew he couldn't ignore it. He had to follow Lily to help her. She led him down the street to her home, and as they approached the house, Malik noticed the door was slightly ajar. The atmosphere was thick with tension. His heart raced as he stepped inside, unsure of what he might find. The sight that greeted him was like something out of a nightmare. Daniel Monroe's lifeless body lay sprawled on the floor, blood pooling around him. His eyes were wide open, frozen in an expression of terror. Olivia Monroe knelt over his body, her face covered in both blood and tears. She didn't seem to notice Malik's presence at first, too consumed with grief and shock. The entire room was stained with the horrors of what had happened. Malik's heart sank as he realized the full extent of the tragedy. This wasn't just an accident. Lily's scream had been a cry for help, and now he was witnessing the aftermath of something much darker than he could have ever imagined. He quickly called the authorities, his hands shaking as he described the scene, knowing that this would be the beginning of something far bigger than just a simple act of kindness. As Malik waited for the police to arrive, he began to feel the weight of the situation. He was no longer just a witness. He was now part of something that involved family betrayal, crime, and a tangled web of lies that had been hidden for years. He had no idea what was going to unfold, but one thing was clear. His life had just changed in ways he couldn't yet understand. The investigation that followed would uncover secrets that no one in the Monroe family could have imagined, and Malik's role in the drama would only deepen as the mysteries behind Daniel Monroe's death began to unravel. The tragedy that started as a young girl's cry for help was just the beginning of a much larger, more dangerous story. Stay tuned. The secrets are about to unravel, and the investigation into the Monroe family's darkest secrets is only just beginning. Malik's heart raced as he stepped into the Monroe household. What he found inside was more horrifying than anything he could have imagined. Daniel Monroe's lifeless body lay sprawled on the floor, blood pooling around him, staining the polished hardwood. The sight made Malik's stomach turn, and a sense of dread filled his chest. As he took a tentative step into the room, his eyes were drawn to Olivia Monroe, who was kneeling over her husband's body. Her face was streaked with blood and tears, her hands trembling as they hovered over Daniel's motionless form. "Olivia," Malik called softly, but she didn't seem to hear him. She was too consumed with grief, too wrapped up in the horror of what had just happened. Malik's mind raced. This wasn't an accident. This was something much darker, and it was only just beginning. Despite the devastation in the room, Olivia quickly looked up at Malik. Her expression was a mixture of fear and confusion. "What happened, Malik?" she asked, almost pleading with him. "I didn't kill him. I didn't—" Her words seemed rehearsed, as if she had been preparing this explanation in her mind. Her hands were covered in blood, and Malik's gut told him that something wasn't adding up. She was clearly distraught, but the story she was telling sounded too perfect, too neatly packaged. As she recounted the events, her voice trembled, but there was a calculated tone to her words, as though she was trying to convince herself as much as anyone else. "I didn't know about Daniel's dealings," Olivia continued, her voice breaking. "I didn't know about all the illegal things he was involved in. He kept me in the dark. I never wanted any of this." Something in her story didn't sit right with Malik. She was too calm for someone who had just discovered her husband's lifeless body. Her expression, though filled with sorrow, didn't carry the weight of guilt that Malik expected. Her hands, however, told a different story. They were covered in Daniel's blood, an unmistakable sign that she had been the one closest to him when he died. Malik didn't trust what he was hearing. He took a step back, his eyes scanning the room. His thoughts raced. What was Olivia hiding? Did she really not know about her husband's criminal activities? Or was she involved in something darker? Before he could dive deeper into his suspicions, a critical detail flashed in his mind: the black SUV he had seen earlier that day. He remembered seeing the car parked near the house, just as Lily had appeared on the scene. The vehicle had stood out to him, but at the time he hadn't thought much of it. Now, with the police on their way, Malik knew that the SUV might hold the key to everything. When the detectives arrived, Malik shared his observations, and they quickly began to investigate the black SUV. It didn't take long for them to trace the vehicle back to its owner, Elliot Crane, a name that sent a chill down Malik's spine. Crane was linked to a notorious criminal syndicate, one with ties to Daniel Monroe's business dealings. As the investigation deepened, the picture became clearer. Daniel Monroe's involvement in organized crime wasn't just a rumor, it was a fact. Malik stood by, watching as the detectives connected the dots. What had started as a simple act of kindness, helping a terrified child, had now thrown him into a world of secrets, crime, and corruption. The Monroe family, with all its wealth and privilege, had been hiding dark secrets, and Malik had unwittingly stumbled into the heart of it all. What was Malik to do next? The stakes were rising, and the danger was only increasing. As the pieces of the puzzle came together, Malik's involvement in the investigation deepened, and the once ordinary boy from Lakewood Estates found himself caught in a web of lies and betrayal. The secrets behind Daniel Monroe's death are just beginning to unravel, and Malik's role in this dangerous game is far from over. The investigation into Daniel Monroe's murder had taken an unexpected turn. As Detective Aaron Mitchell and Carla Ramirez delved deeper into the case, they uncovered a web of deception and betrayal that reached further than they had anticipated. Olivia's estranged sister, Vanessa Carter, emerged as a key player in the conspiracy, The more the detectives uncovered, the clearer it became. Vanessa had been feeding information to Elliot Crane, the man behind the criminal syndicate tied to Daniel's illegal dealings. Her involvement in Daniel's betrayal had been the spark that ignited the chain of events leading to his murder. The detectives' investigation painted a chilling picture of greed and familial rivalry. Vanessa had been working with Crane for months, passing on crucial information about Daniel's finances and business dealings. When Daniel refused to pay back the money owed to Crane, the situation escalated. Vanessa, motivated by personal animosity toward her sister, played a role in ensuring that her brother-in-law would meet a violent end. In the midst of this tangled betrayal, Olivia had remained unaware of the depths of her sister's involvement. Vanessa's arrest came swiftly, and as the case moved to trial, the truth began to emerge in stark, devastating detail. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Vanessa took the stand. She had remained silent for so long, but now, under the pressure of the legal proceedings, she confessed to her role in the betrayal. Her voice trembled as she recounted the events that led to Daniel's death. "I did it because I wanted to hurt Olivia," she said quietly, her eyes never leaving the floor. "Daniel had made so many enemies, but I knew he wouldn't listen. I thought if I could get back at her, make her suffer, it would fix everything." Vanessa's words sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Her confession revealed the deep-seated resentment she had carried toward her sister for years. But her motives weren't just personal. She had believed deep down that her actions were justified, that getting revenge on Olivia was somehow a way to right the wrongs she felt had been done to her. The truth about her involvement in Daniel's murder was a bitter pill to swallow for Olivia, who had been blindsided by the actions of the one person she thought she could trust. As Vanessa continued to explain how she had fed information to Crane, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Daniel's refusal to repay the money owed to the syndicate had sealed his fate. Crane had ordered the hit, and Vanessa's role in facilitating the murder made her an unwitting accomplice in the death of her own brother-in-law. The courtroom grew quiet as the weight of the revelations settled in. The truth had finally come to light, and justice seemed within reach. But the emotional fallout was just beginning. Olivia, her heart heavy with grief, sat silently in the front row, unable to fully comprehend the betrayal of her sister. She had never imagined that Vanessa, whom she had once shared everything with, could have played such a role in the tragedy that had shattered her world. The trial continued, but the damage had already been done. Vanessa's confession had torn apart not only her family, but the very fabric of trust that had once existed between them. The emotional turmoil was too much for anyone to process in the moment, but for Olivia, the road to healing would be long. Vanessa's actions had destroyed the foundation of their relationship, and for Olivia, there was no going back. Will justice be served? The fallout from this revelation was just beginning, and Malik, who had once been caught in the middle of the Monroe family's secrets, could only watch as the investigation reached its boiling point. The road ahead would be filled with difficult choices, but one thing was clear. The truth had been revealed, and the consequences of betrayal were far-reaching. Stay tuned for the shocking courtroom revelations and the emotional fallout that will change everything. The courtroom had erupted in a tense silence as the trial reached its conclusion. Vanessa Carter was convicted for conspiracy in aiding a criminal organization, and Olivia, devastated by her sister's betrayal and the murder of her husband, was left to face the aftermath. The weight of the truth had hit her like a ton of bricks, and now, standing in the courtroom, Olivia was forced to confront the shattered remnants of her family. As the judge called for the gavel, the tension in the room remained palpable, but the sense of justice being served couldn't erase the emotional damage that had been inflicted. Later, Olivia found herself standing face to face with Vanessa in the grim aftermath of the trial. The once close sisters, bound by shared memories, were now divided by betrayal. Olivia's voice broke as she confronted Vanessa, her grief spilling over. "You lied to me. You destroyed everything." Her words were a quiet storm of hurt, confusion, and disbelief. For years, she had believed in the bond they shared, and now, in one tragic moment, everything had crumbled. Vanessa, her face a mask of guilt and regret, had no words to offer. She stood there, unable to defend herself. The deep-seated resentment she had carried for so long had led her down a dark and dangerous path, one that destroyed her family from the inside out. Her confession was not just an admission of guilt. It was the unveiling of a deep fracture in her heart, a wound so wide it consumed everything in its path. The road to healing was uncertain for Olivia, but she made the decision to leave the home she had shared with Daniel. She could no longer live in the house filled with the ghosts of betrayal and loss. Olivia needed to find peace, and she knew that to do that, she needed to break away from the life that had held her captive for so long. So, she and Lily moved into a new, modest townhouse. A fresh start, a place where they could rebuild their lives away from the shadows of the past. The new beginning was both a symbol of hope and a painful reminder of everything that had been lost. Olivia tried to hold it together for Lily, who, though young, had been deeply affected by everything that had happened. Lily had lost her father, and now her family was fractured beyond repair. But Olivia promised herself that she would be the pillar her daughter needed, and that they would build a better future, one where the past wouldn't define them. As Olivia stood in the doorway of the new townhouse, a small envelope arrived. It was from Henry, the mailman, who had always been there with a kind word and a smile. Inside was a real estate flyer for the townhouse she was about to move into. It was a simple gesture, but for Olivia, it carried with it a profound sense of peace. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of calm. She was finally stepping into a new chapter, free from the chains of the past that had held her and Lily hostage for so long. Olivia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything begin to lift, if only slightly. She had no idea what the future would hold, but for the first time, it felt like she and Lily were on the path to healing. What's next for Olivia and Lily? Will they find the peace they so desperately seek? The journey ahead is full of uncertainty, but one thing is clear: they are no longer alone. Together, they would face whatever the future held, hand in hand, ready for the next chapter. Stay tuned for the heartfelt conclusion, as Olivia and Lily's journey continues and new beginnings unfold. Olivia's journey had been nothing short of tumultuous. As she stepped into her new life, her mind replayed the pain, betrayal, and loss she had endured over the past months. It felt like the weight of the world had been lifted from her shoulders as she settled into the modest townhouse she had chosen as a fresh start. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of hope for the future. Though the ghosts of her past lingered in the corners of her mind, Olivia knew that her life with Lily would never be the same. She had no idea what the future held, but she was no longer afraid of it. She wasn't alone anymore. Lily, too, was affected by the events. The loss of her father and the betrayal by her aunt had shaken her in ways Olivia could not fully comprehend. Yet, surrounded by the safety and security of their new home, Lily seemed to begin healing. The trauma would take time, but for the first time she had stability, something she had never experienced. The bond between mother and daughter grew stronger with every passing day, as they leaned on each other for support. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, and Olivia was determined to create a better future for them both. The journey was not without its struggles, but Olivia found comfort in knowing that, with Lily by her side, she could tackle whatever came next. The weight of her past, of Daniel, of Vanessa, and of the lies no longer held her captive. It was the beginning of something new, something full of promise, even if the road ahead was uncertain. One quiet morning, as Olivia stood in the doorway of their new home, there was a knock at the door. The mailman, Henry, handed her an envelope with a smile. Olivia opened it to find a real estate flyer for the townhouse she was about to move into. It was a simple gesture, but to Olivia it represented so much more. It was the final step in her emotional journey, the small act of kindness that reminded her that despite everything, life still had moments of peace to offer. For the first time in what felt like forever, Olivia allowed herself to breathe. She looked at Lily, who was playing in the other room, and felt a deep sense of relief. They had made it through the storm. The darkness of the past had not broken them. Together, they had risen from the ashes of betrayal and grief, and now they had the chance to rebuild stronger and more united than ever. What's next for Olivia and Lily? The future was unknown, but Olivia now had the strength to face it. She had learned that the journey through pain and loss, while difficult, can lead to renewal and hope. She and Lily were no longer bound by the past. They were free to embrace the future, hand in hand. As Olivia walked through their new home, looking at the fresh walls, the clean floors, she knew that this was just the beginning. The future was full of possibilities, and she was ready to face whatever came next. Stay tuned for the heartfelt conclusion of Olivia and Lily's journey. Will they find the peace they so desperately seek? The next chapter awaits. Olivia's journey had been nothing short of tumultuous. As she stepped into her new life, the weight of everything she had been through slowly began to lift. The fresh start, the new townhouse, and the chance to raise Lily away from the ghosts of the past brought her a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She reflected on the lessons she'd learned, the strength she had gained through unimaginable loss, and the hope that tomorrow would be brighter. Though the shadows of the past still lingered, Olivia now had the strength to embrace the future, with Lily by her side. Lily, although forever affected by the events surrounding her father's death, now found herself surrounded by love and safety. The trauma would remain in her heart, but for the first time, she was no longer living in fear. The bond between mother and daughter grew stronger each day, and together they faced the future with courage, determination, and hope. It was the beginning of a new chapter for both of them, where the past no longer defined who they were or what they could become. Olivia had worked hard to create a safe space for them, a place where Lily could heal and grow, and where Olivia could finally leave the heartbreak behind. She didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but for the first time in years, she was ready to face them head-on, knowing that the love she shared with Lily was the foundation of everything. The day Lily ran to her side, broken and scared, felt like a lifetime ago. Now, as they stood in their new home, Olivia knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. A new life awaited them, one that wasn't bound by past mistakes or betrayals. They were free to build something beautiful, something theirs. The future was uncertain, but Olivia was no longer afraid. She knew that with Lily by her side, they could overcome anything. Together, they would continue to grow, to heal, and to face whatever came next. As Olivia looked around their new home, her new sanctuary, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. This was her fresh start, the start of a life that would be full of possibilities. No longer defined by the trauma of the past, she could look ahead to the life she and Lily would create. Hand in hand. Thank you for following Olivia and Lily's journey. The next chapter awaits, and though the future may be uncertain, Olivia and Lily are ready to face it. For more incredible stories, don't forget to subscribe.